Hello everyone, this is Sonia here, and as you know, I'm nowadays teaching how to write and what to write in an ERQ. So our today's ERQ is evaluate the use of one or more techniques used in the study of the brain and behavior. So this is a very simple one. You need to evaluate this answer. That simply means you need to write the strengths and the weaknesses of what? Of techniques used in the study of brain and behavior. So here brain and behavior is referring to that you need to pick up your supporting studies from biological approach. It can be any study. And by techniques means that what was used in that particular study, MRI, fMRI, PET or something else. So what are you going to write? You will start with an introduction followed by explaining one particular imaging technique. Example, let's say MRI. Tell what is MRI, what are the features, etc. And then write a supporting study from biological approach which has used MRI in it. After that, you write a paragraph stating the strengths and the weaknesses of using MRI in that study. So let's start writing. It's almost a ready-made answer and here it goes. The first paragraph goes like this. One technique used by psychologists to study the brain is an MRI. This device requires a certain level of expertise to operate. They are also expensive. However, the technique is important in understanding brain activity and structure. Pixel counting and VBM can be used to measure the size of certain parts of the brain in an MRI. An MRI can tell us about the structure of the brain but can only indirectly tell us something about its function. So now you have seen that I have given one imaging technique, that is MRI, about what is MRI, and I have given the features of the same. So this is your first paragraph. Then next goes like this. Magnetic resonance imaging is a non-invasive method of studying the brain. MRIs indicate the brain structure with high resolution imaging. The study by McGuire et al. Was conducted using an MRI device. Now I'm writing the supporting study which has used MRI device. The aim was to investigate the function of the hippocampus in spatial memory by studying taxi drivers and non-taxi drivers. Two things were measured in the participants' brains. The gray matter was measured using VBM and the area of the hippocampus was measured using pixel counting. The participants gave full consent to being in the MRI. This is not because it poses a health risk, but because if the MRI found something wrong with the participant's brain, the researchers conducting the experiment would be obligated to notify the participant. The MRI device indicates the structure of the brain. However, it cannot establish a clear cause and effect relation. Therefore, it is limited. Now, I wrote the study and I also wrote the strength and the weakness of the same within that paragraph. You can make a separate paragraph if you want. Now, I'm going to give the second study, supporting study, which has also used the imaging technique MRI. So it goes like this. Another example of how an MRI was used can be seen in a study done by Dragansky. He wanted to see how the process of learning how to juggle could change the shape of one's brain. The study had two different groups. All were non-jugglers at the start. One group did not learn to juggle and served as a control group. A baseline scan was done for all participants. One group learned how to juggle. When they were scanned again 3 months later, there was evidence of significant neuroplasticity in the brain. In addition, when they stopped juggling and then were scanned again 3 months later, their brains had returned to normal. This is called neural pruning. The MRI was used because the actual activity of the brain was not being measured. It was only the structure that was important. Once again, participants gave consent and had the right to withdraw. It is not clear, however, if they were debriefed at the end of the study. Now I'm going to evaluate the same in the next paragraph. MRIs have some limitations. A large one is that being placed inside the devices is not a natural environment for cognition, as it is an enclosed space with loud noises where movement is not permitted. In addition to lowering the ecological validity, it can also be anxiety inducing for a participant, which could change the way they respond to a stimulus. A limitation for the MRI is that on the actual brain scans, different levels of activity are shown in different colors. This can exaggerate our perception of the brain activity and make us think that there is more activity going on that there is in reality. And it is difficult to average levels of activity into different colors. A last limitation is that brain areas can activate for different reasons, which eliminates the possibility of establishing a cause and effect relationship between the variables of an experiment and the activity shown on the scans. So here we are done with the answer. This is the basics that you can write, the introduction, conclusion, 2 studies, and then limitations, strengths and limitations of imaging technique. I used MRI. You can use any that you want. Accordingly, you can write the supporting study as well. So this is how this question can be answered. And if you have any concerns, if you want to know more about it, please do write in the comment section below. And if you liked my video, please share, like, and subscribe.